Last episode, we compared Tom Emmer's campaign with Mayor Rybeck's mayoral campaign. Rybeck ignored his election. His campaign headquarters was a UPS store. After I reported on this in RT&Me, Fox 9 picked up on it.
Go to the campaign office.
His opponents didn't have much luck at City Hall either. We went to the address listed on his campaign website. It's for a post office box on Hennepin Avenue.
We're at the Eagle Street Grill across from the Excel Energy Center in St. Paul. Emmer is doing a big Hillary-style listening tour, but is it real or just for show? Let's give Tom credit for at least listing this event on his website as a public event. But when I asked a question, here's what happened. Mr. Emmer?
Is there somebody from the press?
I consider myself a journalist also.
It's not your party.
It's a public event.
No, it isn't.
His website says it's a public event. Tom says I'm not a journalist. Let's remember, Fox reported on Mayor Rybeck's P.O. Box non-campaign, but they got the story from me. I broke it in RT&Me episode 1.
We're going to keep fighting until November the 3rd.
Here's another example. I'm reporting to you right now. This is journalism.
Mr. Bob Carney, who is a moderate progressive Republican according to his card. Mr. Carney.
In this episode, we'll start examining what it means to be a Republican. How much? 2 minutes. How about 5? Do I hear 5? No. Raise it to 3? 3? Do I hear 3? Call it 2 minutes. 2 minutes. All right. It's a 2-minute warning. I'm going to go fast. My name is Bob Carney, Jr. I'm a moderate progressive Republican candidate for governor of Minnesota. One of my big questions in this campaign is simple. Is Mr. Emmer actually a Republican at all? I don't think he is. What I'm trying to do is get us to get back to what a Republican form of government means. And in that, the legislature is the first among equals, among the 3 branches of government. And it's important to have independent-minded people from all parties or no party that are coming together and deliberating and brainstorming and working together to come up with a tax system and a budget that serves the state. That's what I'm pushing for. And I will support people of all parties or no party if they meet those qualifications. I don't want machine politics, caucus-driven people following caucus orders rather than deliberating and collaborating. The role of the governor should be to help the legislature do that. We find this phrase, a Republican form of government, in both our federal and state constitutions. By the way, this is the only guarantee in our original Constitution. It doesn't guarantee safety, freedom, or prosperity. A Republican form of government was offered instead as the necessary foundation. Our Minnesota Constitution assigns only one duty to our legislature: to establish a general and uniform system of public schools. Notice, providing schools or anything else is not the purpose of government. Instead, a general and uniform system of public schools is a means to an end, maintaining the stability of a Republican form of government. Our ancestors knew that without this stable foundation, nothing can be built. Here's the supremacy clause from our original federal Constitution. This Constitution and the laws of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. Here's a fundamental legal doctrine. All laws are presumed constitutional until a court says otherwise. It's obvious that the founders of our country and our state thought that a Republican form of government is of absolutely crucial importance. Unfortunately, Mr. Emmer appears to be launching an across-the-board attack against this foundation of our federal and state political system. Here's Exhibit A, a bill Mr. Emmer co-authored proposing an amendment to the Minnesota Constitution. Here's the key sentence. A federal law does not apply in Minnesota unless that law is approved by a 2/3 vote of the members of each house of the legislature and is signed by the governor. This is a direct violation of the federal Constitution's supremacy clause. Minnesota would be seceding from the Union.
Well, I think Tom Emmer's effort to pick up what the Confederacy failed to pick up in the 1860s is just wrong. You know, we wouldn't have civil rights laws in most of this country if states were able just to opt out of them.
To try and make sure that we maybe don't adopt federal laws. Do you have any opinions about that? This is a real push by Emmer.
Right. Well, I think we need to. We are a state, right? But we are part of a country of 50 states. I mean, that's for a whole different party, isn't it? The Up North Party or something that wants to secede from the Union. I'll leave that argument to them.
I received an email about Mr. Emmer's amendment from J.R. Graham, a Republican former county attorney and a candidate for this year's Republican endorsement for Attorney General of Minnesota. Here are some excerpts from a July 2nd news conference I called on this topic. This bill amounts to secession. And I'm going to read just one sentence on here. It says, a federal law does not apply in Minnesota unless that law is approved by a 2/3 vote of the members of each house of the legislature and signed by the governor. So if this went into effect, our state constitution would be proclaiming initially that there would be no federal law applying in Minnesota. This is secession. It is not nullification. It was originally sent from J.R. Graham, who is a former Republican county attorney. You requested my comment on House File 3738 introduced in the 86th legislature. I am sorry that Tom Emmer was party to the introduction of this bill because it will earn him nothing but political trouble. Mr. Graham wrote, the bill was introduced to placate a faction of radical but misinformed constituents. Mr. Graham offered this critique of Mr. Emmer's proposed amendment and a warning. House File 3738 is also defective in that it says that no act of Congress will become effective unless 2/3 of both chambers of the Minnesota legislature approve, which is manifestly contrary to the way legislative authority has already been distributed under the United States Constitution. The state of Minnesota cannot amend the United States Constitution. It would be dangerous if the United States Constitution could be thus amended. Maybe secession from the Union might in the end be necessary and proper, and I believe that the people of Minnesota in convention might exercise such anonymous power at some future date. But as long as we are part of the Union, we must play by the rules which have been agreed upon. This proposed constitutional amendment would be an affront to our sister states and might even ignite civil war. So I'm calling on Mr. Emmer to clarify his position. Does he seriously advocate this bill, this proposed constitutional amendment? He is a co-author of it. Or was he doing this just to pander to a radical element in seeking the endorsement? Any questions on this?
If he does believe in this, do you think it's harmful or to his candidacy come November?
Yes.
Why?
If he does believe in this is secession. We're back at the Eagle Street Grill. I regard myself as a candidate journalist. I identify myself as such here. So I want you to know that. Thank you.
Who are you? Oh, the uptakes here. I didn't know you guys were still in business.
Yes, we are.
Representative Emmer, House File 3738, do you still support that?
Where would you like me, Tom?
Where you want me?
At the bar. I like that spot.
House File 3738, do you still support that?
So what are we doing?
Mr. Emmer, 3738?
What you got?
House File 3738. Saying to ask him if he still supports it. He introduced it as an
Let's do
offer.
this another time, Bob. We're on message here. Let's do this after.
Yes, ma'am. And you, young man, you're a candidate. Never get photographed with a drink in your hand.
Emmer and a group of Republican endorsed candidates filed for office together. Here's their news conference after the filing.
You guys have any questions?
I'm afraid to ask him.
Don't be such a chicken. Don't be such a Nancy Organ. Come on.
Introducing yourself to voters via the paid airways.
Paid radio, TV.
As this series continues, we'll look more closely at why the money media is afraid to ask questions. Meanwhile, this is journalism.